Hey, welcome to Soul Awareness with Constance Messmer. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I thought I'd talk to you about my process. And I hope I don't bore you. So, as you know, I've had mystical experiences my entire life. And I have always analyzed them, noticing and paying attention to the nuances of the interaction of the soul and human potential. I used to watch it in conversations with loved ones, and one thing led to another, and I eventually started reading souls as a work experience, as an offering for work. And do you see me like looking around? I always do this. I'm like resourcing, like, and pulling through my database in my brain, and while at the same time talking to spirit, saying, where do you want this to go? I'm like, can I have cue cards? Where are my cue cards? So this is me pulling words from spirit and myself. It's a combined effort. So let me explain some of the process that I go through when I do my work. When I used to do private sessions and I did reads, I used a few different approaches. I would always wrap the experience in light and offer it up for the highest good and ask to be a clear channel for the information that came through. I've told you I only work with the good guys. So I would always bask the work in light. And I would read people's souls. I would open up my own soul awareness and use all of the tools that I've been teaching you. All the psychic centers, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsensation, clairsentiment, clairgustance, clairolfaction. And then I would also use my empathic skills, tuning in empathically. And then I would also use claircognizance, just knowing, right? Airdropped from the heavens, I'm sure. So I would use my own resources, but I would also listen to guidance from spirit. I might tap into not just my own guides that might want to help me in a soul reading, if you will, but the sitters, the person that came and sat before me, their guides, their angels, and sometimes their loved ones that had crossed. Oftentimes their loved ones that had crossed would just show up, and I'm looking in the ethers to kind of go, who's here in astral. But I don't do private readings anymore because I'm supposed to be doing, having a wider reach, reaching my wider audience. And I'm hoping that's what's happening. That's why I'm talking to you now. So when I do workshops, which I still offer, only large group, and when I do talks, public speaking engagements, or as a hired speaker for conferences or venues, I use the same skill set to tune in and deliver information. So part of my process is to offer the whole experience up for the highest good. And so, listen, sometimes, Spirit was telling me the other day, it is just like when we have someone come to you for a soul read, we don't tell you in advance a lot of the specifics. Like sometimes when I would do that, I would tune in around them before they got to me. And, I would definitely have loved ones that would want to come through. So I was like, okay, yep, I'll give you airtime. Because otherwise I have this habit of going way up high, just higher to angelic and God. And so loved ones that had crossed would often let me know they were going to be at the session. Because I never did straight medium. Well, no, I did do straight mediumship for loved ones at a cross, but a lot of people came for soul reads. What's going on in my life? What's wrong? You know, things like, what's my true mission in life? What should I really be doing? What about my soulmate? You know, questions like this. So I would source the answer from all of these different places, much like how I'm teaching you in all my lessons. And the same is true when I go into speaking engagements. Unless God tells me specifically, I am going to channel through you in this session. And that's what's happened in private one-on-one sessions. There's been times that I've sat directly across with someone, tuning into their soul, and me sitting in a chair, and I am just hooked in and acting as a channel. The information is coming through me. It's not a medium. I'm not hearing the information, seeing it, picking it up, and then delivering it. It's just, I'm hooking in, and they're using, usually God or the angels are using me as a vehicle for their words. It's a great opportunity, channeling, for me, because nothing gets minced. I am so persnickety about getting the message exact. So when I do act as a medium and I source information from spirit, I'm very hard on myself to get it word for word or visual for visual or feeling for feeling. So when I talk in large group or teach in a workshop, I don't always have the luxury to sit down and go into full God moment, right? Although I definitely have. But usually when I do a workshop or a speaking gig, I have been divinely guided and have worked with my own higher beings enough to know that in those moments, I might have a topic to discuss or address, and I advertise it as such. But oftentimes, depending upon who shows up in the flesh, the information might shift. I might spend more time in certain areas of the topic talk than I might have thought otherwise. I tend not to give the talks a whole lot of thought. Like, sometimes I do, because sometimes I'm like, what am I talking about? You've got to tell me. You've got to tell me some things in advance. But Spirit reminded me the other day, it's much like when I would do reads for people. I didn't know what was going to come through. I don't have the time in the day to know, like, I got my own life to live. I don't want to worry about them, right? I just want to do my job, right? So it's been an interesting journey. Sometimes when people see me give live talks, they probably are expecting, you know, they have their own expectations. Are they thinking, I'm going to do more messaging for people in the audience? Am I going to do more straight channeling from divine wisdom, consciousness? And how do I, you know, what is my process? Sometimes they ask. So my process is to go into those moments with a topic or a teaching and let God work through me. So sometimes that means turning my attention to a guide or turning my attention to someone's loved one, or offering out messages specific to them. When I do that, especially at talks, if it's a small town and I realize they probably know each other, I am directed by Spirit not to go right up to the person, but instead I kind of offer the information to a general area in the room. Between you and I and everybody else listening, I'll often look them in the eye. And it's so cute because after the talk, often they come up to me and say, you know, that landed. Thank you for that info. It was totally for me. So it's fascinating to me like recently I did a talk and a spirit kept showing me, like this refrigerator on the wall. It was a piece of art and it was a half, like just the door of the fridge. And they kept showing it to me over and over while I'm talking. So I'm like talking and they're interrupting, like they interrupt each other, right? Because I'm only talking and delivering what I'm getting from somewhere else. And meanwhile, Spirit's like showing me the fridge. So I've got someone over here say, can you mention the fridge? So I'm like, okay, yes, I'm gonna mention the fridge. Okay. So then I mentioned the fridge and I'm like, how should I mention the fridge? And then the fridge came out and I related it to a moment or an experience in my life personally. And there are no mistakes when I give talks. The fridge was not just a message for me. This happens a lot too. Like, pay attention, Constance, listen up, this one's for you too. But the fridge wasn't just a message for me, but it was a message for a person that then after the talk came up to me and said, that fridge message that you spoke pertaining to your own life also landed right in my wheelhouse of needing to pay attention. And so it's fascinating to me that part of my process is, once I dedicate myself to the task at hand of the teaching or the workshop, everything that comes out of this mouth, or every gesture or touch of my hand or whatever, is all God-driven. It's all God-driven because I dedicate my work to that light. And so I think, I think of the people in the audience and I think, oh my God, they're probably thinking this woman is so scattered. Like sometimes I repeat, like I've said all this information and at the end, I like kind of recap, but that's only because Spirit says, say this. And I'm like, while I'm saying whatever they're saying, which is a recap, I'm kind of arguing in my head going, I've heard this before. And they're like, say it again. So I surrender, right? I surrender. So it's so funny. And so I think people probably think she's just repeating herself, but they're just saying, you're recapping, you're recapping. I wish I had a visual teleprompter, but I don't. The information comes to and through me, and I'm just going along for the ride. And so while sometimes I can be hard on myself after a talk that seems to have gone off course, the bits that I mention that are seemingly a divergence, people come up to me and say, that bit that you said, I needed to hear that. And I'm only here for this while, so I don't have opportunity to hear you more than once, maybe, or whatever. Gosh. I'm like, really, God? Oh my God, I'm such a fool for God. Like, I am willing, right, to embarrass myself. It's so funny. That's so funny. What a trip. So let me see. So my process is definitely, it's just surrendering. That's my process. My process is setting the intention that I'm gonna deliver messages that's for the highest good for everyone that comes to the workshop or the talk or whatever. And then I just step out of the way, right? So my process for me is surrendering and waiting on the will of heaven. And I am constantly, you see my eyes? Can you see my eyes? I'm like scanning, right? When I give talks and workshops, like I said, I might have the theme, but I am scanning the realms of spirit for the brightest and most substantial information that needs to come through. And certainly there are times like what used to happen in my private sessions when I would just sit and fill up on God and deliver that. There are times in the talks when I have to when that happens. And when I have to steady myself because I'm like, oh dear, let me hold on to a podium or something because this is going to be a channel. It's not a trance channel, but it is definitely consumption and communion with the divine. And so I've actually asked God about, I don't want to be a trance channel. I want to be present for the information. I can do a light trance or a full-on like channeling where I'm actively involved, participating and involved in listening. Although sometimes I don't always remember what comes through. I have to rewatch the tape and I was like, wow, when that happens, I'm like, wow, okay, cool. I learned too, but I've definitely asked God, because sometimes when I trance channel and I've held other energies in my body, I've told you, listen, my face can really skew up and it's not pretty. So, anyway, because I have to hold the energy of the frequency of the beings. And so God is one thing, but when I'm sometimes teaching healing sessions and I channel ancient healers, then holding their energy and going into more of a trance channel, actively trance channeling, I'm like, it's just, yeah, do you see me? I'm pondering. Should I embarrass myself? Like I've drooled before because the energy and the frequency and the rapid fire of conversation that comes out is like overwhelming in my being. And so I imagine that if I spent more time with those beings, that I would be able to harness and hold their energy well enough not to drool. But I don't really get that that's my calling. Like, listen, I'm not going to share this vessel in that way, in channeling with just any being that wants to, come in and deliver a message word for word. And because I say to them, usually if beings want to come in during a talk I give, I only go high. I'll only deliver messages from, definitely God, angels, but if it's loved ones, I have no desire to become a trance channel or a channel to the degree that I could be with them. They can tell me, just tell me, I'll pass it along, trust me. Now, I also definitely, as part of my process, I will have a shared sensory experience. I will empathically meld with them so that my mannerisms are similar to their mannerisms, I've found. Because when that's happened in sessions, I can sense it. I feel it, I know it. And also the loved one that's here in the physical has come up to me and said, oh my gosh, that's totally how my father moved, or that's totally what my brother used to do. So I digress. So someone had asked me, what's your process? That's why I'm telling you this. I think that from now on, I am just going to do more videos of myself speaking and teaching. This is not my favorite thing. To be seen. To be seen. But I'm just brave enough to do it, and it's a good idea. So, and I'm going to be courageous and vulnerable enough to let you see me drool if that happens. Oh my God, I promise I won't edit it out. This should be a trip. So, is there anything else I want to say about my process? After I do my work, I definitely, ground back in my body. And after I've taught, I do this thing with energy and light where I bless the people. I often start blessing them before they even show up at the workshop and the talk. I have a class I'm teaching in a month and people are already starting to feel the energy. I'm like, well, once you've paid and signed up, you're fair game. So I'm going to be working with your energy field. I tell them that, I warn them. But after the fact, because it happens to me too, right? When I am in those spaces of love and light that transpire and occur when I am teaching and gifting the sharing that I get, then there's a ripple afterwards that it can influence and affect your life. How could it not be? It's so being filled up with that light and in that vibrational space that I go into when I'm doing live events, I'm sending it out to you and I'm, asking for the highest good to be sending it out to you now. Even in all of this, and may you be blessed and may you be filled and may you follow your own soul awareness. May you honor it. May you live a great life. May you know peace. May you know love. May you realize that you have all of the answers inside of you and you can source them at any moment. That's all I do. We're the same. We're the same. You've been listening to Soul Awareness with Constance Messmer. Thank you so much for tuning in. Legally speaking, this podcast is presented solely for educational, spiritual, and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for medical diagnosis, treatment, or the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat a health problem or condition. Always check with your doctor. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed this episode with Constance Messmer, we'd like to encourage you to continue your spiritual journey with this next episode.